Good evening. Uh, some routes really fire your imagination. You hear stories of these things that take on quite legendary status, some of these climbs. Um, Sometimes it takes a good piece of writing or somebody good to convey the route in question. What I'm going to talk about this evening is one of such route, an absolutely amazing climb that took two of Britain's most colourful and talented climbers of the 80s to unlock, to have the audacity to go and have a look at this thing. Totally remote, totally committing. You know, I read the piece of writing back in the day. I don't know where it is now. I'll have to dig it out. It's a fantastic story written by, I think it was Paul or Johnny, one of the two. I can't remember who wrote it now. But the route in question is the scoop on Strone Ulladale. Just amazing. These guys to go and just have the front to go and free this thing when they did was amazing. Ground up effort. Yeah, I haven't read their account for a long time, but I did read it back in the day, and it was a stunning piece of writing that certainly fired my imagination to want to go and do this route. So back, not good with dates. When you're having a good time, all the years roll into one, don't they? So in the 90s, early 90s, I think, April, I headed up to the Isle of Harris in the Outer Hebrides with Mr. Barton, as per usual, and a certain Greg Rimmer. And we met two good friends of ours up there, Mr. Noel Crane and Crispin Waddy, who were very familiar with the crag and the scene up there. So it was really good for us to have them up there who'd done the scoop, had the gen, had the numbers, and you know, probably the best company you'll ever meet. These guys, if you've ever met them, you know, superb to hang out for a day or two. So I'll drink to them. So we headed up ridiculously for a weekend. Just don't think I realised how far it was at the time, but it's probably easier for us to get to Fontainebleau rather than drive up to the Isle of Harris, which is just a major outing to get to this place. Long drive up through Scotland, out onto the islands, then ferries across, and more driving, endless driving, ferries, and when you get there, a long 4-hour walk in just to get to the crag. So, you know, not quite a lot of commitment and effort for what actually was a day's climbing, albeit a very, very memorable day's climbing. So Dave Barton and I went to do the scoop. Greg was going to climb with Crispin and Noel, and they were going to attempt the chisel, the route to the side of it. For those of you who don't know, the scoop is, I think it's in the original Hard Rock book as an aid route, then was freed obviously by Paul and Johnny. Originally given A7, I think it's around 8 pitches long, very committing, very fierce line. You'd really struggle to retreat from it at certain parts or be rescued from it, so almost an alpine outing. The grade settled down a bit now, you know, maybe E6, but it's not about the grade, it's about, you know, the commitment. It's hard climbing in an amazing remote place. So yeah, we went up in early April actually. I don't think we were the fittest we'd ever been at the time, Dave and I. We were doing all right. Probably not the fittest we'd ever been, but we were climbing okay. It turned out to be an amazing day. The weather was pretty mixed, although the rock was perfectly dry and the conditions were cold and windy. On my return, I wrote this piece, which I'm going to read for you on the day. And it was in an anthology of essays that some of the Lancashire lads put together, more of which people are going to be reading for us, hopefully. A real mixed bag, a real good effort of amateur writing. None of us are Shakespeare. But yeah, the piece is called The Merits of Afternoon Drinking, which I wrote on my return from the Strone. One take again, no editing, make your own mind up. But here we go. This is the tale of the scoop on Strone Ulladale. Slap, slap, slap. I can't take any more of this. For the umpteenth time, the faded orange fly sheet lands in my face. We borrowed the tent from Roy Ely. A slight oversight being the pegs and some of the poles. I'd like to compare this to some bad dream, but I'm not sure if I've slept at all. A howling night-long gale and more than a little trepidation have made this a night to forget. The only solace has been a timeshare arrangement as to who gets to sleep with Martha. To those unacquainted, she is Dave's Jack Russell. Apart from being a great team member, she also doubles up as a good hot water bottle. With slowly awakening limbs, we brave the cold and short walk across the tundra to join our friends at the black, icy lock. Even Martha looks pissed off, hiding from the elements between clumps of peat. Morning ablutions are quiet and brief before retreat is made to the cave for breakfast. Looming above our hideaway and refusing to be ignored is the hulking black mass of Strone Ulladale. 600 feet of spectacular rock architecture are at the moment decorated by early morning cloud. Threatening skies and the constant wind combine to scupper today's objectives. This is early April on the Isle of Harris in the Outer Hebrides. Despite the prevailing conditions, this is one of the most beautiful, albeit remote, places I've ever visited, in a dark sort of way. Our plan and a long-term dream of mine is to make a free ascent of the Craig Classic line of the Scoop. The Scoop was first freed in an audacious effort at E7 by Johnny Dawes and Paul Pritchard. The route has still at this time only had a few repeats, and although the climb has lost a little bit of its aura, it still remains a lengthy, committing and technically difficult undertaking. The company, however, more than makes up for the weather. Noel Crane and Crispin Waddy, with numerous visits to the Strone, are Craig locals. Both having climbed the Scoop, they give us plenty of information and assure us all will be okay. Crispin tells tales of summertime visits, climbing till midnight and moonlight bathing in the loch. The only drawback being the dreaded midgie, although Crispin denies encountering any. We're here early in the year because we really don't believe him. Greg's along too, fully at home and getting into the gnarliness of it all. The effort of getting here at all deserves the E grade. 14 hours in the car, including a near head-on collision, reference Greg. 2 hours on the ferry, 1 bottle of malt whiskey, Greg again, and a 2-hour walk in, add to the overwhelming fear of isolation. We've come all this way and we're having a go, declares Dave, and my heart sinks. I dig deep and with some bravado, I agree. Before heading up to the cliff, we swig on the bottle. The whiskey eases my knotted stomach. With the feeling that things are a little out of control, we head up. The first pitch is mine. Immediately engulfed by exposure, weighed down by gear, and with whiskey breath, it's 8:30 a.m. at the beginning of a very unusual Saturday. Straight away it's steep. My movements are decidedly workmanlike. Supposedly a bold pitch, I'm quite heartened by the runners, and with surprise I'm soon high on the wall. With pegs clipped this is the first crux. Fueled by the physical efforts and well psyched. The holes, however, have different ideas. Everything goes tiny, and with freezing fingers and a lame slap for the jug, it sees me off. With anger and relief, I lower down. Oh well, I've blown the flash now, the pressure's off. Up again, warmer and more relaxed. I gain better hold, then space walk towards the slings, swaying menacingly in the wind. Soon, joined by Dave, suspended on the tart, we begin to feel the enormity of it all. Our friends back at camp already take on an insect-like appearance as they prepare for their own adventures. Dave disappears running the next two pitches together. He's gone for some time. Relieved at leaving the stance and my emotional wavering, I'm at once focused by the moves and in my element. Laybacking up dramatic style corners, the rock is perfect, although I'm trying hard. I thought this was the easy bit. Better holds in the horizontal striations greet the widening of the groove. I'm starting to flow. Although water cascades down from a fissure high on the right. However, our line is not affected by the water, and the rock is only matched by the perfect friction. Back with cheery Mr. Barton on a neat little stance. Reality soon bites back, and it's my turn again. Once more, one glance and I know all is not well. It's dramatic time again, pitch 4 manifesting itself in a smooth corner, disappearing at an alarming rate leftwards. It looks constricted, but at least there's a peg to head for. I dwell on the stance becoming a bit too conspicuous. My plan to send Dave on the bold bits now seems a little flawed. The exposure is sickening, like stepping off the top of a skyscraper. Stuffing friends in regardless of size, I'm holding on far too tightly. How can I be sweating in this temperature? Gasping, I'm eyeing the peg and nearly drop the quick draw, clipping with a wobbling left arm. With full heartaches, I've lost it and take up the butterfly stroke to gain the groove above. Indignantly, I'm spat off and dangling from the decaying ironmongery. Hastily, I rearrange the friends and plug in another for good measure. Reunited on the stance, all I get is laughter from Dave. What did I expect? A sympathetic ear? Anyway, 10 minutes later, I'm back at the peg, this time with my hands on fire with full heartaches and a little more composed. I still can't work out the moves into the groove, and I take up swimming again to eventually surface in the easy angle corner above. Relief is soon tempered by my surroundings. Flanked on all sides by overhangs, I get the feeling of incarceration, and the fear takes over me. Not being brave enough to jump off, I can't communicate with Dave. My escape plan consists of 6 of the most pathetic RPs ever placed. Palming around the arete, I'm rewarded with bomber fingerlocks and sinking runners. I've just spent half an hour making easy moves feel desperate, but that's hindsight. Steep pulls and I'm hanging the stance only to be faced by the final indignity. Dead centre on the tiny ledge sits a huge turd. At this moment, about 6 inches from my nose. Forced by my sensibilities, I claw up the wall to the left to send the offending pile earthwards. Cursing, I clip the anchors, placing the blame on some disillusioned egg climber. Dave arrives with the usual rapidity, laughing at the joke RPs. He's loving this. We share the great little perch in the sky, and all is well for a while. Eyes closed, I'm gone to somewhere distant. Detached and high on some whimsical memory, my emotions are high. A sudden updraft brings me back to the Strone. Cracks in the sky allow a momentary flash of silver across the lock, and the grim facade slips for a while, giving our hearts a much needed lift. Time is precious, however, and there is a minibus waiting. Dave is anxious to get on and drops down leftwards. To the uninitiated, pitch 5 consists of a massive coach-sized block, apparently detached from the crag. The ropes pay out almost quicker than I can give them. I soon realise why Dave went so fast. The block actually echoes as I swing onto it. Devoid of footholds and gear, the ropes loop in an arc 30 foot to meet Dave. The fear has returned as I ape leftwards, swinging on Dave's leg to clip in. Suspended comically on a couple of crap-looking pegs, I feel now we are on the scoop for real. Squatting on Dave's head, I bridge a few moves up, but not being my forte, I slam back down, bruising us both. Thoroughly disheartened now, we discuss the folly of our situation, pondering where we would rather be. We discuss darts and dominoes and drunken afternoons in the pub by the fire. Back in reality and unable to face the corner, I contort up the left arete to better holds. 40 easy feet now ensue, and I've got some style back. Another perfect stance arrives, but the wind hits hard on the very arete of the mountain. Snow and hail form great white drapes out at sea. We're sheltered, however, by the huge curtain of overhangs above. Cruelly, the scoop saves its worst for the last. The infamous roof pitch looks worse than I imagined. Not wanting to get cold, Dave's big lead is soon underway. A bomber titanium peg, courtesy of Paul and Johnny, is clipped, but the breach is a long way rightwards. A fall from here is unthinkable. Dave is silent under the overhangs, his head against the rock and eyes closed. I struggle to watch. Suddenly he's gone, cutting loose around the lip, slapping for everything. It's hard to tell through squinting eyes, but I'm sure he's laughing. Intensely relieved, I stifle my watering eyes, well chuffed with my partner. I certainly didn't want to lead that pitch. The ropes are totally horizontal to the wall and whip around as Dave struggles to take in. I follow cold and stiff in skin-of-the-teeth fashion. I knew what I had to do was his only comment when we met at the belay with a wry smile. All is a joy now as I pummel up the last fantastic pitch. Beautiful rough gabbro affords holes everywhere. Even the wind has dropped now as I plug a friend into the sunlit crack. Not feeling the need for any more gear, I sprint the remaining 60 feet to the top. Deposited on the broken slabs, free of the Strone, my ego is already taking on new proportions. The mundane task of finding the belay and shoes, although the gear on the slabs is scarce. Further up, I chance upon an old peg, a remnant from the first ascent probably. Clipping a quick draw into the peg, I lean out backwards to back it up with a friend. Without warning, I'm cartwheeling down the slab in a tumble dryer of earth and sky. With my fistful of heather, I stop short of the abyss. A few feet short of a potential 200-foot fall onto the belay. Retching, I curse my stupidity at endangering us both. With soil in my hair and blood soaking through my shirt sleeve, I bring up Dave. My drip white complexion tells the story, and once again laughter fills the air. After the customary handshake, we share the moment. Back in the comfort zone, we rattle down the screes without a care. In the flickering candlelight of the cave that evening, I can forgive Noel's past a surprise. The surprise being the sheep shit inadvertently scooped up after an upset pan. Martha is happy to be reunited with the team and out of the wind. Wine is mulled and the malt handed round in the best restaurant for miles. Crispin looks and is totally at home in this excuse for a cave. Greg the barman happily fills our cups as we bullshit late into the night, ranting of old glories and future plans. I don't really recall returning to our tent after the wine and the whiskey. Floating in my feather bed, I can't begrudge Dave the luxury of Martha, the bed warmer. I mustn't let Dave, the old man, get cold at his time of life. The last day arrives, soaked in torrential rain. Guiltily, we leave the boys to retrieve abandoned gear from high on the chisel. The horizontal elements drive us wearily out of the valley to the sanctuary of the car. By the time our sodden friends arrive, Dave and I have finished all the beer that was stashed in the boot. Looking back from the ferry, the island hangs in mist. Strone is already a memory, a tale to be told. Feeling a little more lived in, We dine on the ferry on eggs, chips and beans, washed down with crap coffee. What do you fancy next week, lads?